Teaching your child about money can be tricky, especially if you're not confident in your own money management skills. That's why today we're talking with financial expert Amanda Grossman. Amanda is a certified financial education instructor and founder of moneyprodigy.com, where she teaches parents how to educate their children about money. In our interview, Amanda shares why it's important to teach your children about money at home, what age you should start having these money conversations, and activities that you can do with your child based on her 5 stages of money development. If you like this video, please give it a thumbs up and subscribe to DollarSprout's YouTube channel for more helpful content like this. And if you have any feedback, feel free to leave a comment down below. Let's dive in. Okay, hello everybody. We are here today with Amanda Grossman. Am I saying that right?
Yes, Amanda L. Grossman.
Yeah, Amanda Grossman. And today we're going to be talking with Amanda about how to teach kids about money. I'm super excited about this topic, Amanda. Super grateful to have you here. Kids.
Yeah, thanks so much.
Yeah, this is something I'm personally very excited about and know that our listeners and our readers are going to get so much value from this too. So to start out, how about you introduce yourself for those who haven't heard your story yet? Can you tell us about yourself, your story, and how you got started teaching about money and teaching kids about money?
Absolutely. So thank you so much for having me. I'm Amanda L. Grossman. I'm a certified financial education instructor. And I've been actually blogging for 10 years now about personal finance on frugalconfessions.com. Lots of lessons there, but that's a whole other thing. So about 4 years ago, I was sitting in my office wondering sort of which direction my blog should take. And I just had this sort of like epiphany. And to give you a little bit of context about why it happened, since I've been blogging for 10 years, I've been getting these emails over the years, probably 3 to 5 a month from people just in like desperate financial situations. You know, they just pour their hearts out to me about losing jobs, having to stay in abusive relationships because of money, having to choose between health insurance or putting food on the table, starting up a business and the business just making no money and now they just are totally in debt. All kinds of just terrible, terrible stories. And so I was sitting in my chair this one day, again, thinking on like, how in the world can I help these people? Like, I know about personal finance. I write about these topics, but it's just, I don't know. Sometimes they just felt so far gone that it was such a huge problem. And then I thought, wait a minute, why am I so focused on helping people out of these sort of catastrophic money situations? Why don't I focus on prevention? And when I thought of that, it just completely changed like everything. And I thought, if I'm going to do prevention, that is kids and money. That's not adults and money. That's kids and money. That's an entirely different business and website and brand. And so I then sat on it for another 3 or 4 months. I had a 1-year-old at the time, and it was just completely overwhelming anyway, and also running Frugal Confessions. And it just kept hitting me and coming back. Then I got this other idea, which I'll talk about in a second, that made me think, okay, I just have to go forward with this. So I created my website, I created Money Prodigy, I did my own logo, I did my own colors, I did everything like that. And I was able to piggyback off of the lessons that I've learned from Frugal Confessions all these years to kind of like start up this new business. And I got another sort of like divine inspiration to do this really cool kids money program called the Mount Everest Money Simulation, Kids Money Simulation. And it's a kids educational adventure, that whole thing. And I reached out to the Plutus Foundation and I won a grant from them to actually bring the program to life. And that sort of was the beginning of Money Prodigy. Of course, it was a blog and I was moving forward. But through my work and through the money simulation that I had created and the grant funds, I've now worked with over 330 kids, I think I'm up to personally working with. And then, of course, my blog posts have reached other kids and things like that. And just continue down that vein of, if I can prevent these huge catastrophes that I've had to hear these heartbreaking stories over the years by getting to kids now, then that's fulfilling. That's my life purpose right there.
Yeah. That's awesome. I would love to hear more like about your simulation. Can you talk about that for a minute?
Oh yeah, absolutely. So I have this sort of not obsession, but minor obsession with Mount Everest.
Yeah.
And I think it's like absolutely fascinating to watch somebody going their journey of like testing themselves to the limits and just making that huge challenge, raising the money, getting themselves to Mount Everest, up the mountain and that sort of thing. Love mountain climbing, love that kind of stuff. And so to me, it was such a simple connection. After I got that divine inspiration, I was like, that's it. I'm going to take Mount Everest and have kids go through a money simulation where they're part of the climbing team for a fictitious person. His name is Eric. And we're going to help him figure out how he's going to afford to get to Mount Everest, how he's going to climb it, and then how he's going to afford to get back to his home without going into debt. That's the whole mission of the money simulation. We're going to work together as a team to get Eric, our fictitious climber, to Mount Everest and back without going into debt. And as we work along, it's sort of a choose your own adventure story. Like every single simulation turns out differently, and there's different scenarios that can happen. There's different monkey wrenches that were thrown along the way, recorded from the mountain, different simulation scenarios that come at us, and they all revolve around some sort of thing with money. And so we go over things like travel insurance and, credit versus taking on debt versus saving up. We move the target date of when he can actually climb to our decision-making capabilities to get him there. Like, how can he afford to save up for it? How's that going to change his target date for when he actually gets to go? So it's a really cool, really engaging simulation. And one day, my actual overall goal is to do this money simulation at climbing gyms so that I can take kids through the money simulation, do like a transmission, do like a, what's that time when you take a break?
Like a
intermission, right? Transmission.
Okay.
Intermission period where we actually all go climb, like rock climbing on, a rock wall, and then finish the simulation there. So that's my overall goal for the program.
That's awesome. I love everything about like what you just described with the simulation. I think that is a super creative way to teach kids about money because, when you're teaching children anything, you have to come up with these creative ways. And that just sounds like such an engaging and interesting way. I love that.
Yeah, I think it really captures their interest. And what it also does is, like, when I started looking into all these kid money sites that are out there, they're static. To me, it's a static way to teach kids about money. So it's and the reason why I use the word static is like, what money decision in your life have you been able to figure out from the worksheets that you did in school about money? Like almost nothing, right? When you come up with a money decision and when you have to like work through some sort of complicated scenario, you're looking at this, you're looking at your resources, you're looking at your limits, you're looking at debt products, you're looking at all kinds of stuff. So worksheets can take a kid so far. You can learn vocabulary with worksheets. You can learn how to calculate things with worksheets, things like that. But you need dynamic decision making to be able to equip a child to be confident in money management. And to me, this Mount Everest money simulation and the other money simulations I hope to make in the future, like it throws kids in a team in this sort of dynamic situation that's different for every single simulation that kids go through. And they have to think on their feet and they have to use the resources that they have, and those resources that they have are direct consequence of the decisions that we've made earlier in the simulation. So I really love the program.
Yeah, such a great way to teach kids about money, but also just like, consequences and cause and event, or cause and effect.
Yes,
so
cascading problems.
That's awesome. So what age? Well, first of all, I want to ask, for parents or the people out there who are like thinking about teaching their kids about money, or this is kind of on their mind, but they're questioning like, why should I be the one to teach my kids about money? Like, isn't this something that they should learn in school or something that they do learn in school? Why should we be teaching kids about money at home?
Yeah, absolutely. So right now, and I actually just checked a week ago because I like to keep up to date on this sort of thing. There are only 21 of the 50 states have some sort of literacy requirements, a financial literacy course, personal finance, mixed in with economics or something like that. So that's less than half of the states have that as a requirement. And then what I found actually way worse than that is, of that 21 states that have some sort of requirement to have a class, they surveyed the teachers that are teaching those classes. And 60% of those teachers said that they're not confident in their own money management, so they're not confident teaching kids how to manage their money. Wow. And this rings true to me because, like I said, I've been teaching, helping adults with their money for a decade. And the bottom line is many, many, many adults, more so women than men, but plenty of men as well, are not confident money managers themselves. And when you're not confident about something yourself, how are you transferring that confidence to a child? And not only that, but you then might just ignore it and hope that it gets taken care of at school or something like that. Yeah. And here, come to find out that, only half the states have a requirement. And then of the teachers that are actually teaching it, more than half say, money, I don't really know what I'm doing. So this is critical for parents to be able to teach their own kids money management. And that's one of the big pushes of my website is I partner with mamas and papas to teach their kids about money management. I want to empower parents to teach their kids about money management, because even if you don't think you're qualified to teach your child about money management, I show you that you are, no matter what. Even if all you think that you've done is make mistakes throughout your life, you can take those mistakes and turn them into really valuable lessons for your child that they'll actually retain and take into young adulthood.
Yeah. Yeah, it's so interesting to hear you say about the teachers at school not even having confidence in their own ability. Because that rings true with my personal situation. We didn't have a requirement in my school to take any personal finance education classes, but I opted into one. I think my junior year of high school, I opted into a personal finance class because I wanted to learn. But I even felt in that class, there wasn't a whole lot of substance. It felt very surface level. They say there's a difference between knowledge and knowing, and it felt very much like the teaching of the classes that I took, where the teachers had the knowledge, but there wasn't a whole lot of personal experience there. So, and as a parent, you have a vested interest in your child's success, right? So
you don't want your child ending back up on your couch.
Yeah, exactly.
That is every mother's worst nightmare, right? Yeah. Am I going to launch my child out into the real world and they're going to boomerang back to me because they can't handle their finances? And parents feel like a failure like that. So they kind of just don't talk about it, or it's something that they should do, but they don't get to. And so I help them get to it.
Yeah. I feel a lot of what I've heard parents say before is they're not sure. They're just unsure of what age to start teaching children about money. A lot of people, I think, are under the impression, a lot of parents are under the impression that you have to wait until your child is in middle school or in high school to start really talking about these concepts. So what age should we start teaching children about money?
Yeah, I have a lot to say on this subject, because one of my biggest problems as a blog creator for Money Prodigy is I came into this knowing that you need to teach your kids at a young age, much younger than people think. But because people don't think that they should teach their kids at a young age, they want to come in at it as teenagers. And I know this because I can see the Google keyword researches or searches that people use to come to my site. My teenage articles on money are far more popular than my preschool or my middle school. And that tells me that one of my problems is, how do I parents at the age that they should start to teach their kids when they're not thinking about that and not searching for those terms, because then they're like, oh, my kid's too young. So I guess that's part of the re-education that myself and other professionals need to do. And so a story real quick actually is, I was shocked at how early my kids started thinking about money, because a new study has come out, new study being in the last 2 years, that actually by the age of 7, your kids' money habits are sort of cemented. Not entirely cemented because we are constantly changing, but their sort of propensity to be a certain way, like if they're a saver or a spender or sort of things like that, they're sort of cemented by the age of 7, which means you need to like get to them earlier than 7, right? And so the guidance from the President's Advisory Council on Financial Capability and that sort of thing is between the ages of 3 and 5 you start. And so when I started my site and everything, even I was like 3 to 5. Wow, that is so young. But I guess learning how to count money and learning what money is and things like that. That's great. When my child was 2, I was in a Chick-fil-A realizing that he was doing his first store transaction. I didn't even plan it. I didn't even think that it was a transaction, but it was because we had done this summer reading program. And he got one of those free gift cards with you either get a free ice cream cone or you get a free French fry. And I let him make the transaction. And then I thought, oh my gosh, this is monumental. This is my son's first store transaction. Yeah. He now understands that you hand them something for payment. It was a gift card at the time. And then you get something in return. That's a store transaction, right? Wow. So I really feel like it starts, probably at 2. If you are listening to this and you're thinking, oh my gosh, my child is 14 or 17 or 10, we are way off the marker. Don't worry that much. They love to do doom and gloom things in the media, but this whole age of 7 and that sort of thing, you can stretch those muscles in your child. I call them stretching their delayed gratification muscles, stretching any of their learning education muscles. You can start today and they're going to be better than they hadn't started. So don't be completely freaked out about the 3 to 5 or even 2 years of age. But if I looked at the overall perfection picture, I guess I would say, even at 2, they're starting to think about oh, my mom has that plastic card she uses to buy things with. I want her to use that to buy me something. Or, oh, I just got this ice cream cone because I gave her something. What did I give her? What's money?
Yeah. 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 And I think another thing that we forget about is in addition to the hard money lessons, the counting change, the transaction, the money scripts is what Brad Klontz, financial therapist, I really love his work. And he talks about money scripts and how, those beliefs about money, the way that you think and believe about money, those unconscious scripts are set around that age as well. And so even if you're not teaching your kids at that young of an age, even if they can't, do the math and count the change,
they're picking it up.
Attention. Yeah. Yeah, exactly.
When if my husband gripes about having to go to work, I'm like, no, we don't want to have a negative connotation to work.
Right.
So I'm aware of those things. I'm sure most parents are, but it is you have to get into the habit of not freaking out over it because you're not going to be perfect. I am not anywhere near perfect, but also trying to be more proactive in yes, I get to go to work, not I have to go to work, I get to go and make money. And then with that money, I get to make choices and live the life that I want to live.
Right. Yeah. As a parent, a child is just a sponge, at that young of an age. And so
what our kids pick up, it's amazing.
Yeah.
It's a little scary.
Yeah. So I love that you say that, the get to go to work, the really being aware. Yeah. Aware of the example that you're setting all the time. So
yeah. And honestly, what I find is as you correct these things for your child, it helps you out as well. It changes your perspective as well. It really changes.
Yes. I love that. Okay, so I want to get into some lessons. We have 5 lessons here when it comes to teaching your kids about money. And I think, so this is your kind of take on how kids learn about money and this sort of the stages, right, that kids go through when they're learning about money. So I wanted to talk about these 5 steps and then kind of at what age these steps occur, and then what are maybe some specific lessons or things that we can be doing with our kids in these different phases to help them really learn these lessons and start building this money foundation.
Yeah, so I'm all about like kids need to self-discover. That's what I call self-discover these money lessons, because you can't like you can't make someone think a certain way about money. I mean, you can try your hardest, but you're a parent. You know that you can't make your kids think a certain way, right? And you can't make them see the light necessarily unless they go through it themselves. And so my whole take on, teaching kids about money and the different ages and that sort of thing, which everybody wants like a formula type thing. And I understand that because I'm a parent too. I would love it to be easy and cut and dry and I can follow something, right? So from working with kids and from all the research that I've done, I sort of came up with my own stages of like where you can meet your child, where they're at, their curiosity level, or where they're naturally developing. And then they can self-discover different money lessons at those stages because they're just naturally primed for it. Yeah. So the first one that I sort of felt that, and by the way, this isn't necessarily age related, but I do start from like youngest to oldest. So these are just sort of like natural progressions that kids make when it comes to money, at least from my own observations and my reading. And so the first stage that I have found that I think most parents can understand or have seen for themselves is like they become fascinated with the power of money, right? So my child right now is 4 and he's fascinated with power of any kind. But like everything has power or it has no power and something else with power is going to take it over. Yeah. Little side. But kids become sort of fascinated when they see that with money, you can make choices or you can buy something like, oh my gosh, if I have money, I can buy something. Like I am fascinated by how that works. And so to catch a child at that stage, which is usually the first one when at some point they become aware of what money is. Again, I don't even know how my own kid became aware of money, but he knows about money. Like we've hardly talked about it yet, which is bad, by the way, but we've hardly talked about it yet. And he knows money. Like he knows that it buys things and he has ideas for things he wants to get and all this stuff. And like, slow down. But anyway, so when you see that your child is fascinated by the power of money, like what it can do, why don't you take that as an opportunity to let them do their first store transaction? That will fascinate them further. And the whole idea here is you want to pique your child's curiosity, no matter which of these sort of 5 stages that they're in. If you can keep their curiosity, which means they have a self-interest in what that money is doing for them, then you're going to teach them so many more money lessons. They're going to self-discover so many more money lessons than if you try to like push something on them. So that first store transaction, you want them to do it for them. Like get them excited about something that, or they probably already have told you something that they want. And instead of just either buying it or, making a wish list and waiting until their birthday or something, grab that as a money lesson. Like, all right, you're going to make your first store transaction. And in order to do that, I'm going to gear you up towards it through like how, and then you're going to watch mommy make one in a store and talk out loud doing like I'm taking my card out of my purse and to the person. And then also it's out there that I have a whole post on like books that talk transactions to get people ready for it. That's sort of one activity that I talk about for like that stage where they're fascinated with money.
Yeah.
So the next sort of stage that they likely will go through after that, like I said, it's not necessarily by this age or anything like that. So don't freak out if your child, it's just to start building sort of delayed gratification. So kids, we all come out of we're all like young and we just have like instant gratification because we can't think that far ahead. Like I have to do time in context of my own child's ability to understand time, right? So I can't say that's 5 days from now. He has no idea like what a day feels like, right? Like he only knows that's 5 times that you go to bed and wake up or something like that, right? So with delayed gratification, we all start off like with like instantaneous gratification. It's the first thing. I mean, if you're hungry, you cry, you get fed. That's it, right? At some point, the stage comes that they're going to start naturally delaying gratification. And with how this works out with money is saving up for something. Now, when I talk about saving up for something, way different. You cannot take a child who is 6, 7, 8, whenever they reach the stage 5, whatever it is, you cannot have them save up for 3 months for something. There is no way.
Right.
Are kids predisposed towards being savers and spenders? Yeah, I think any parent will tell you some kids like naturally hoard money and some kids naturally spend money. But 3 months is an eternity for a child, an eternity. So when I say save up for something, in that first initial time that they're going to save up for something that they want, I mean 1 allowance cycle. That's it. Think about it. They get, if they have an allowance or whatever time, like chores, commissions, whatever you want, whatever your allowance system looks like, take them past 1 payday to save up for something. At the end of that week, month, biweekly, 3 days, however often they get paid, if they save something from that first cycle, first time that they're delaying gratification, think about it, right?
Yeah.
So you want to start at the smallest unit possible where they're saving something, and that is just 1 allowance cycle. Allowance being whatever your allowance system looks like if you have one.
I think that's so important. Such a handy tip, because like I wouldn't have thought that. It makes so much sense, because when I think about when I was a kid, 3 months was a lifetime. Like a summer vacation was like, I'm never going to school again. Yeah. So I think that's super handy. So delayed gratification, saving, tip number 2. What are some examples maybe of things that we could help our child or help our children save towards, especially when they're at such a young age where they're just learning that skill of delayed gratification?
Yeah, so playing off of that, making sure your child is interested, number 1, in whatever sort of money activity that you're doing.
Mm-hmm.
The younger they are, the more they're going to save up for wants versus needs. And then as they age, they get put more in charge of needs versus their wants. Like they have to start constraining their wants for needs. But as a young child, dig into those wants. I mean, of course you have your own household rules as far as like if you don't want them to buy certain candy, things like that. So they have to like understand those within those boundaries, like play on their wants. You want them to desire to learn about money because they get what they want in the beginning.
Yeah. So rather than like you said earlier, rather than trying to force your child to be interested in a lesson about money, like just play on what they're already interested in, and it'll make the process so much easier.
Yes, absolutely.
Okay, cool. So the third skill or the third phase is express their own priorities using money, right?
Yes. So sort of the next place that they step into in their own natural development, they start to want to express their own priorities, which money is a great way to do that, because you can buy things that help you express your identity, help you how you want to be, help you experience the things that you want to do, but sort of letting them take more of the reins as far as like expressing their own priorities. And priorities, we all know as adults, really means like budgeting, right? So at this stage, what I recommend doing with kids is getting their first budget and spending plan set up. And again, notice I said expressing their own priorities with money. Mm-hmm. So you have to do this within the context of, these are our house rules when it comes to money, such as if you save a certain percentage of your income, if you allow them to spend a certain percentage of their income. Like set up those family money rules and family money values. I have a whole article on how to even think about that. Mm-hmm. And then once you have those set up within those bounds, let them express their own priorities by setting up their own budget for a week at a time. I do not recommend like a 2-week or a month-long budget. Yeah. And then also a spending plan. The spending plan can be their larger overall money value being expressed through money kind of thing. So with the spending plan, it could be family-oriented, such as in this family, we save 20% of everything that comes to the door. So part of their spending plan is going to be 20% of all my money goes towards savings, something like that. So the spending plan is like the overarching thing, and then the budget is just the week to week. Yeah. So that's what I sort of talk about with this stage that you want to be doing with your kids.
Okay. So how might this, I know you said these stages aren't really tied to age ranges.
Not necessarily, yeah.
Yeah, okay. So let's say you haven't like you haven't talked to your kids about money, or I guess rephrase this question, how might this stage look different for a child that is younger, on the younger side,
Mm-hmm.
5 years old, let's say, versus a teenager? Or is this a phase that you can really do with a 5-year-old? What does that look like?
And I don't know if 5-year-old would be old enough to really grasp what a budget is, although you certainly can start with something like money jars where they can physically see a spending plan, where you say that this is what you spend, this is what you save, and that sort of thing. But the older that the child is, the more that they need to take over part of their budget, whatever in your family that looks like. I've got plenty of examples as far as how comfortable you are with giving over control or not in money. And the more that they need to be thinking about their money in context of needs versus wants. So for a teenager, just as an example, in your family, the way you might express this is, let's say they're starting to set their own priorities, and within your family context of your money values and that sort of thing, you're making them save, like, because everybody in the family saves 20% of their income. Okay. And in order to help them express their own priorities, you give them reign over 20% of their allowance, chore commissions, after school job, whatever you want to do. Okay, so that's 40% right there. And then with that extra 60%, you're going to have to figure out how much of that control you want to give over to them. Something that you can do if you don't want to give them full control over it, or if you do want to give them full control over it, which I'm a proponent of, you can make them in charge of a category of their own spending that borderlines on a need. So let's say for school next year, you have a 16-year-old. Give their clothing budget. Whatever money you would normally spend on clothes for their school year, if it's like $200, $500, whatever happens in your household, you give them charge of that and make them create a spending plan with that, or they go to the store so that it's not just like a willy-nilly thing. And then you provide some oversight, and you figure out after, you sit down with them and see, how did you do? Like, did you stay within what you thought you would for pants? Did you go over? Not in a nagging sort of way, not in a I get to tell you exactly what to do sort of way, in a mentorship way, because they're going to feel the actual consequences of their own actions. These natural consequences are going to come up, both good and bad. Not all consequences are bad. They're going to have good and bad consequences from this, and they're going to have to live with that. That's sort of how you would do it with teenager versus younger.
Yeah. Yeah. Thank you for that. Okay. So the next phase is questioning money boundaries, right? So what does that look like?
Yeah. So it's Dr. Henry Cloud. I had to write his name down so I would remember. And Dr. John Townsend, they came out with this like brilliant book on boundaries with kids. And I read through the thing and I'm taking notes and I love it. And I thought, nobody talks about money boundaries with kids. Absolutely nobody on the internet. I've never seen an article talking about these are money boundaries that we have established, that we're going to enforce with our kids, that are going to help our kids grow up to be responsible financial managers. So I've written like lots of articles on money boundaries. It's based on this book, but it's taking it to a whole different realm with money. And my whole thing is that your family unit, whatever that looks like, has to come up with money boundaries. And or kids have to abide by those money boundaries, as do you. You have to, a money boundary is basically deciding, where does my wallet end and your wallet begin? That's like the crux of the issue. You get into these situations where you take your kid to a store and they want something, and if you haven't established a money boundary to begin, some days you might buy it for them, some days you might not buy it for them. And it's sort of like inconsistent. And so when you have those inconsistencies in parenting in general, those are weak spots. Those are like loopholes, right? Kids can totally take over like those weak spots. And they will. We all have. We grew up as well. So instead, if you establish these money boundaries with your kids, and they can look like all kinds of different things, like, for example, you are out of your allowance or chore commissions or whatever income that you have, you're responsible for paying for after school snacks. Or in your allowance, I'm giving you lunch money as well. So you're responsible for for affording both your lunch money and then whatever else you want to spend your money on, that sort of thing. But I'm not going to physically give you more money after that money is gone. Or your allowance system is a money boundary, and that sort of thing. What you want your child to be responsible for, those are the money boundaries. And what you're going to be responsible for, those are also money boundaries. And so in this stage, teenagers, that's what they do. They like butt up against boundaries for like 4 years, right? Like 4 years, you want to pull your hair out, or at least it feels that way. Yeah. But money boundaries as well, they're going to start questioning those. They're going to start thinking, why do I have to work for money? Why do I have to buy these things for myself? Why isn't my allowance higher? Why aren't my parents just handing me money? This kid gets money all the time. Like, those are money boundaries that you're going to have to be faced with. And if you can just think about it ahead of time, what you want your money boundaries to be, and then set out those expectations ahead of time, it's going to be less budding than if you're just on the fly trying to figure out your money boundaries, because that's hard. Yeah. So at this stage, we're basically talking about like tweens, definitely teenagers. They're going to be questioning this money, and you're going to have to be ready. In this family, this is how to deal with that. I'm willing to listen to your arguments, because I love that you're trying to negotiate for yourself. I love that you're trying to question the norms and everything. And then in the end, here are my decisions. I may or may not tell you why, and we're moving on.
Yeah, I love that. I was going to say, when I first read this, it sounded like very much the teenage phase of money, just like the questioning boundaries in general. And this was something that like I didn't realize at the time, but when I was younger, I feel like my parents did a very good job of this, was like giving me the responsibilities as I started working my first job at 14. And it was like immediately, okay, you're making money now, you pay for your clothes. Like, if you want clothes outside of the norm.
Money boundary.
Exactly, yeah. And it sounds like money boundaries, in a sense, are synonymous with responsibilities. Like you were saying, what are the responsibilities that your child is going to be like on their plate?
Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah, and I was just going to add, one of the biggest money boundaries that you are going to face, and so you want to build up to it, but also manage those expectations, is college. Who is going to pay for college? What is that money in our family? What do we expect you to do in school to attempt to get those scholarships and grants so that we can kick in whatever we're going to kick in? Like, what are those boundaries? What are those expectations? That's a conversation that definitely needs to happen.
Right. Yeah, I found that with a lot of my friends. I've had conversation with friends and people that I went to college with, and it was like for a lot of people, families don't have that conversation until right before college. And then it's like,
right? No,
even
in my own family too.
Yeah, exactly. So yeah, having those conversations early on, right? And then the fifth phase is the desire for financial independence. I'm super excited to hear you talk about this one.
Yeah. So the desire financial independence stage, which is an exciting one for both teenagers and adults. But if you like naturally are meeting your kids where they're at as they go through these stages loosely, it's not perfection. It's just, you're giving them a little bit more responsibility, and they're feeling a little bit more confident in their money management abilities over the years, that sort of thing, then eventually they're going to actually desire financial independence. And I say actually because I think lately we've seen in the last generation or two, like a real hesitancy to launch out into the real world. Whereas when I was, when the day I turned 16, I wanted to get my license. Now, granted, I didn't get it until I was 17, but that's because I had a boyfriend who drove me everywhere. So I did not would have gotten my license. But I am hearing over and over again from parents that their teens don't want to get a driver's license. They don't want to get a job. They can't force them to do that. And then they don't leave. Like, they don't want to move out. Maybe they're doing college, maybe they're not, but out. Whereas when I was, I went to college, and then right after college, I went from college to my first apartment. Like, I didn't even want to move home. I desired that financial independence. And so if you do these, if you work with your child along the, what I feel is this hesitancy part of it is that they're not enough. to get out there and manage their money, which is the core of being independent at all, is managing your money.
Mm-hmm.
So part of that is just meeting them at these different stages, helping them. And then as they age into tweens and teenagers, you're becoming more of a mentor, more of a manager of them, but more of a mentor, helping them through these decisions so that they get more confident. All about teaching kids money confidence, because I think that that is a huge thing that's missing in the adult population. And that's part of me feeling like I'm preventing, some of these huge issues. Is we're going to help raise money confident money managers. Like, that's so important to me. So follow loosely along in the years. Throw the ball in their court more and more to make decisions. Let them feel those natural consequences from their money decisions, because they will learn from them. And then help them make the next decisions as they ask you to. And then they're going to desire that financial independence, because they're going to feel enough that they can have it. Mm-hmm. They don't think they can have it. They're going to be like, I'm just staying home with mom and dad.
Yeah. So some of the big takeaway tips that I've gotten from this so far are to start early. Don't wait if your children are young now. Start early, get them interested in money. That first phase, develop that fascination with the power of money. Then meet them where they're at. Let them self-direct, right? Talk about and base those financial lessons on what they're already interested in. What are some of the other big tips, big picture tips and takeaways that you have for parents about teaching their kids about money?
I believe that if, let's say, you are just totally confused beyond learning how to count money and identify money, what the heck to do with your kids as far as money is concerned, which I understand. I just happen to be a money nerd. If this was about architecture or something like that, I would feel the exact same way. I truly believe that if you can take your child and help him navigate through a savings goal, that's going to teach them so much about money management. That right there will cover 6 or 7 huge lessons. And if you're looking for something with a bang, that's what I would do. I would help them narrow down, brainstorm. I have a 1-page savings goal money matrix, basically, that's going to help your child brainstorm everything that they want, all the crazy stuff. You don't filter them. I want to travel to space. I want to, buy a Barbie doll. I want whatever it is. You're going to help them narrow it down to the goal that they should be working on today, being quickest win goal is what I say, because kids need some sort of instant gratification. They're going to build that delayed gratification as they go. But you want their quick win goal so that they come back to that goal setting line over and over. And then you're going to follow through with them as they attempt to save up the money. It has to be past at least one cycle of allowance or chores or whatnot. That's called savings for them at this age. And then help them see it through. That's going to teach them so much about money. And because you're going with something they're profoundly interested in, even if it's Captain Underpants book series or something, right, grab onto that. That's going to be what's going to anchor your money lessons with them at this point in time. And of course, that will change as they get older.
Yeah. I love the theme of how you've talked about teaching and working with your kids as being self-directed. You used the word mentor earlier. And I think that that's a super important part for parents to keep in mind is you don't have to hammer things into your kid's head. You're there to be the guide, right? Yeah. Be the guide, be the mentor for them and help them navigate these 5 phases.
I mean, there's natural consequences built in with money. And so you have to be the kind of parent that's going to allow them to feel the natural consequences. That is hard. That is hard for any parent. But if you let them feel it now in that icky, yucky way, they're not going to be feeling they have to make a mortgage payment. You see what I'm saying? Feel it now when it's smaller, and then they're going to start really those lessons because we're not making the consequence. And you're just allowing them to feel that.
Right. Yeah. This has been super helpful, super informative. I really appreciate your time today, Amanda. Is there anything else you want to add before we wrap this up?
I think my number one thing that I just really want to drive home to parents is you are qualified to teach your child about money.
Yes.
you need guidance. Like I would need guidance if it's about architecture, if it's about other types of math, trigonometry, stuff like that. Obviously, I need guidance on that. You need guidance, and people are there like myself to help guide you, but you are qualified to teach your own child money. I'm 100% passionate about that. Even if it just means you need help from the outside to like get that out of you, to make you understand what parts of your money experiences and your money history can help your own child become a much better money manager and much more confident when they leave your house.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, would you mind to share with our audience, where can people find out more about you? Where can they connect with you?
Yeah, absolutely. So my main site where everything is moneyprodigy.com. And I'm also on Pinterest, pinterest.com/moneyprodigy. I am on Facebook. I'm not very active on there for Money Prodigy, but I would say go to my blog and maybe Pinterest.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, thank you so much for being here with us today, Amanda.
Thank you. As you can tell, I love talking about this topic.
Well, thank you. We appreciate it. And I think this is going to be super helpful for parents everywhere. So
awesome. Thanks so much for your time.
Yeah. Thank you so much for tuning in on this conversation with Amanda and me today. I hope you enjoyed it. Don't forget to give this video a thumbs up and subscribe to DollarSprout's YouTube channel for more money-related content like this in the future. And if you're interested in learning more about Amanda and all of her great work, we will leave links to her site, moneyprodigy.com, where she has so many helpful articles and so many helpful resources. We will leave that information in the description down below. Thanks again for being here, and we will see you next time. Bye.